was one day God is going to assess me, and there are going to be rewards, and there are going to be all kinds of things kick in terms of how I responded to things that were difficult for me. Or how about this? 2 Timothy 4, verses 7 and 8. The last letter Paul ever penned that finds its way into the Bible. I have fought the good fight. I've finished the race. I've kept the faith. Now there is in store for me the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will award to me on that day, and not only to me, but also to all who've longed for his appearing. Somebody once said that living on this planet is training time for reigning time. And I don't think, you might disagree, and God bless you if you do, I don't mind. But I don't think we're all going to arrive in heaven the same. I don't think it's just going to be, same old, everybody's the same. My view is that how we respond to battles and struggles and difficulties and what God says to us and we respond to him is not just affecting now, it's going to affect then. To quote a famous theologian, that's a joke, by the way, to quote a famous theologian called Maximus Decimus Meridius. Anybody seen the film Gladiator? Russell Crowe played the role, looks a bit like me. Maximus Decimus Meridius says this: what we do in life echoes in eternity. So what we're going to look at this week in terms of the battles and struggles that David went through is going to be for those in transit to a glorious destination in the hereafter. But I think perhaps even more importantly, what we're going to look at is going to be very, very helpful for those in transit to a great destiny in the here and now. In other words, God having a call on our life. Now, I know we're all different. I know we all have different theologies. But whatever your view on election and all the rest of it, I think every one of us would agree that in 1 Samuel 16, the call on David's life, he's the one, he's the chosen one, has to do with the assignment God had for him. 1 Samuel 16 is nothing to do with David going to heaven when he dies. 1 Samuel 16 has everything to do with what David does on earth en route to the place God has for him. He's chosen as the king. God has an assignment for him. And if you come to this series of teaching, I promise you, God is going to give you tools that will help you narrow down what's God's call on my life in terms of what he wants me to be doing. Now, I've been a pastor long enough to know, and I mentioned it a moment ago, that many Christians, in their deepest heart, do not believe God wants them to be key players. We may believe it up here, but truth has not taken the longest journey in the universe from here to here. Now, why is that? Why is it that so many Christians don't actually believe that God has a personal assignment for them? God wants to do something through them. Well, I want to suggest it's often the way we have been programmed. The things that have been said to us. Maybe even in church, the unbiblical ideas we've picked up. I don't know if you picked it up in the reading. By the way, tonight is just we're going to look at the text in more detail another night. I'm just trying to give you a flavor of where we're going tonight. I don't know if you noticed in the text that even David's own dad did not invite him to the interview. He gets all the other brothers along, and Samuel goes down the line and says, "Is this it?" And we know what Jesse didn't know, because God has been saying to Samuel, "Not this one, not this one, not this one." And David comes to the end of the line and says, "This it?" And Jesse says, "Well, no, there's the kid, but you can't mean him. I mean, there's the other one, but you can't possibly mean him." I mean, even his own dad doesn't rate him. His brothers certainly don't rate him. As we'll see on another night, when he turns up on the battlefield and he's wanting to take Goliath out, and he's not wanting to take him out to Starbucks, he's wanting to take him out permanently. His brothers are misreading him, they are suspicious of him, they're accusing him of things. And I wonder how many things have been said to you in the past, maybe even in church, that have programmed you to believe God doesn't use somebody like me. I don't have it all together. I'm struggling with this. I haven't got this sorted out. God doesn't use somebody like me. I would love you to try and identify the rubbish that has been programmed inside of you, the labels that have been stuck on you. Labels are very powerful things. I heard of some research done in America where a lady was stood at the side of the road with her left foot off the floor. And as people walked past, a number of people said to her, what's the problem? And she says, I've gone over on my knee and I've twisted my knee. I can't walk. Well, could we help you? Well, yes, if you wouldn't mind, if you could go to the chemist, the pharmacist, and just get me an ace bandage, that would be brilliant. And so people toddled off down to the chemist, and he was in on the deal. And they would say to him, do you have an ace bandage, please? And he would say, I'm really sorry, I sold the last ace bandage 10 minutes ago. Every single person, not knowing they were in a kind of a little deal that was being run, went back to her and said, I'm really sorry, he doesn't have any ace bandages. Not one of them asked the question of the chemist, do you have a different kind of bandage that would do the same thing? See, labels are incredibly restrictive. And yet many of us in church, by well-meaning people, have had labels slapped on us and things told us that are either not true or are only partly true. And so we sit and think God could use him, he could use her, but God could never use me. Well, I want to suggest the value of this teaching will be it will give you hope if life's tough for you, that this is a training time for reigning time, and I think it will also give you some tools to figure out what God wants to do in you and through you. I promise you. How about the encouragement of this mini-series? Well, I wanted, just for a few moments, to ask some rhetorical questions. And I underline the word rhetorical, because our 18, 19-year-old students, many of whom are from North America, English people would never do this, but if you ask a rhetorical question, they will shout the answer out. So don't shout the answer out. Just a few rhetorical. I wonder what you think of the title of this series, if you're honest. Getting the King Out of the Boy. See, that title implies certain things. It implies certain doctrine, certain theology, certain view of people.